You ever stand at midnight, wondering if the lone wolf haunting frost-bitten forests is a monk or a tyrant? The zeta doesn't howl at false moons. He scrapes the sky raw to reshape it. Both wear the same scars. Both hunt the same void. Where does your own shadow lean? Toward the hermit's cell or the conqueror's crown? In this 8-chapter scripture, let's analyze zeta. These are raw zeta rules no one talks about. Let me introduce zeta to you first. This is a subarchetype of sigma, just a little more aggressive version of them. Let's just start the video. Subscribe if you're interested in philosophy and psychology. Chapter 1. The Invisible Rebellion. Do you ever feel like you're watching life through glass, seeing everyone else perform roles you never auditioned for? Picture a busy street corner where everyone knows their part. The executive rushes past, phone pressed to ear, chasing the next deal. No time to waste, no time for himself. Earning extra money for government satisfaction, or boosting his own ego to show off the society. Following invisible scripts written by someone else. Diogenes, who masturbated publicly showing indifference. Loki of MCU as a anti-hero. Joker of DCEU, who hates society. Or John Wick's vengeance. You're a myth. People often admire these characters that they can't easily become in the social restraints. But here is darker truth. Zetas, who score above 80 in the dark triad scale, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and sociopathy, becomes devilish. Their shadow is so powerful, it became criteria for devil himself. You've discovered something others haven't, that the entire performance is optional. While sigmas find clever ways to work around the system and alphas fight to dominate it, you've made a more radical discovery. You don't have to participate at all. This realization came quietly, not through some dramatic awakening, but through a slow recognition that the things everyone chases, money, status, approval, feel hollow when you touch them, like reaching for fruit only to find it's made of wax. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus spoke of freedom as the ability to want what happens. You've gone further. You've found freedom in not wanting what everyone else desperately seeks. Society calls this dangerous because it is, not to others, but to the very foundation of collective meaning. When one person steps outside the circle and doesn't burst into flames, others start wondering if the circle was ever necessary. Your rebellion isn't loud or violent. It's the quiet terror of proving that their game is optional, and that makes you far more threatening than any revolutionary with a bullhorn. You don't reject their world to hurt them. You reject it because you've tasted something more real. Chapter 2. The Wilderness Inside. Ever feel society's cages aren't made of steel, but etched into your thoughts? Sigmas pick the locks, alphas bend the bars to entertain jailers. You dissolve the metal with your blood. This isn't escape, it's psychological exile. You don't rage against the system, you reject its language entirely. Money, a fever dream. Status, dust. Careers, fiction spun to keep men compliant. A 2023 Cambridge study found those who detach from societal metrics lose 41% of their social recognition, but gain a 29% drop in anxiety. You trade applause for the weightless freedom of invisibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. You stain yours, the shade of wind, directionless, untouchable, fierce. You sleep when exhaustion claims you. Eat only when hunger screams. Your possessions, nothing that can't be abandoned in 10 minutes. Your companions, the rain's rhythm, the moon's cold gaze, the stray dog that shadows your steps. People call it dropping out. You know the truth. You've dropped in to a raw reality they're too distracted to see. When they ask, how do you live? You answer with silence or a smile sharp as broken glass. How do you not? The wilderness isn't some forest beyond the city. It's in your marrow, in the hollows between your ribs, and in that desolation, you uncover a terrible freedom. Nothing is required. Everything is permitted. But the cost bleeds. You forget birthdays, miss funerals. Your hands grow calloused, not from labor, but from the emptiness of all you refuse to grasp. Relationships fray like old rope. Yet when you watch the sunset, with no debts in your mind, no future to mourn, no name but your own echoing in your skull, you taste a truth that terrifies the world. Aloneness is not loneliness, it is sovereignty. They chain themselves with dreams of tomorrow. You walk naked in the now. Chapter 3. The Weight of Nothing. Have you noticed how heavy emptiness can be? Most people fill their lives like they're packing for a trip they'll never take. Relationships that drain them, jobs that hollow them out, possessions that own them. They carry this weight and call it living. You've learned to travel light, not because you're lazy or uncommitted, but because you've discovered something profound. Most of what people consider essential is actually optional baggage. Think of a tree in winter. Society looks at it and sees death. Barren branches reaching toward nothing, but you understand what's really happening. The tree has shed what it doesn't need, conserving energy for what matters. It looks empty, but it's actually more alive than the cluttered summer version everyone admires. This is where you differ from both alphas and sigmas. Alphas accumulate power, status, followers. Sigmas accumulate independence, skills, strategic advantages. You accumulate nothing, and in that nothingness, you find everything. The ancient Taoists called this Wu Wei, action through non-action. But you've discovered something even more radical, being through non-being. While others define themselves by what they have, achieve, or control, you define yourself by what you choose not to carry. This terrifies people because it exposes the arbitrary nature of their burdens. When they see you moving freely without their chains, they're forced to question whether those chains were ever necessary. But here's the dangerous part. The weight of nothing can become its own trap. When you shed everything, you risk shedding meaning itself. The challenge isn't learning to carry less. It's learning to distinguish between necessary weight and dead weight. You walk the razor's edge between freedom and void. Chapter 4. The Gravity of Solitude. Do you remember the first time you realized you could be completely alone and feel more alive than when surrounded by people? Most humans treat solitude like a disease to be cured. They fill every moment with voices, screens, activities, anything, to avoid the weight of their own company. Alphas surround themselves with followers to feel important. Sigmas choose solitude as a tool for independence. But you've discovered something different. You don't use solitude, you inhabit it. You need it to control your excess energy. Think of a deep-sea diver descending into darkness. The pressure increases with every foot, crushing most who attempt the journey. But for those who adapt and face the fear, who learn to breathe differently, the depths reveal wonders invisible to surface dwellers. Your solitude has that same crushing pressure. It forces you to confront thoughts that others drown out with noise, to feel emotions that others medicate with distraction. But in that pressure, you've found a strange kind of strength. Study by Nguyen and Ryan found that people who can tolerate extended solitude without anxiety show increased creativity and emotional regulation. But the research missed something crucial. They measured tolerance, not transformation. You don't just tolerate solitude, you're transformed by it. In the silence, you hear things others miss, the subtle patterns of your own thinking, the rhythm of your authentic desires, the whisper of intuition that gets lost in the crowd's roar. But here's the cost nobody talks about. Solitude has its own gravity. The deeper you go, the harder it becomes to surface. What starts as chosen isolation can become involuntary exile. The skills you develop in solitude don't always translate back to the world of others. You become fluent in a language only you speak, and that can be both your greatest strength and your most dangerous weakness. Chapter 5. The Mirror's Edge. When was the last time you looked in a mirror and saw a stranger looking back? Most people spend their lives running from themselves. They fill calendars, chase goals, surround themselves with noise, anything to avoid the confrontation, waiting in silence. Alphas project strength to hide weakness. Sigmas retreat to avoid exposure. But you've done something far more dangerous. You've embraced your shadow. You've turned inward and refused to look away. Picture a man standing before a mirror that reflects not just his face, but his fears, contradictions, and buried truths. Most would smash the mirror or cover it with a cloth. You've chosen to stare until the stranger becomes familiar, until the familiar becomes acceptable. This isn't narcissism or self-obsession. It's archaeological work on your own soul. You dig through layers of conditioning, expectations, and borrowed dreams until you reach bedrock, the irreducible core of who you actually are. Psychologist Carl Rogers wrote about the true self versus the false self, but you've discovered something he missed. Sometimes there is no true self to find. Sometimes authenticity means accepting that you're a question without an answer, a story without an ending. This radical self-acceptance creates a peculiar kind of confidence, not the borrowed confidence of achievement or approval, but the unshakable confidence of someone who has seen his own darkness and decided it wasn't worth hiding from. But here's what they don't tell you about looking in mirrors. Eventually, you see through them. When you've examined yourself long enough, the boundaries between self and not self begin to blur. You realize that the person in the mirror and the person looking at the mirror might be the same illusion. That's when the real danger begins, when self-knowledge becomes self-dissolution. Chapter 6. The banquet you walked away from. You ever sit in a crowded room just to witness the lies they feed each other? The brittle laughter cracking like cheap plaster. The compliments traded like counterfeit coins. The way they carve slivers of their soul to pay for scraps of approval. You stood up from that table long ago. Society throws a banquet of fictions. How are you? Meaning perform. Okayness. Let's connect. Meaning add me to your ledger. I love you whispered like a plea. Don't leave me alone. You stopped swallowing the lies. This isn't hatred of people. It's metabolic revolt. Your relationships run on different fuel now. Silence over suffocating small talk. Absence over hollow obligation. Raw truth over comforting lies. A 2024 social neuroscience study found natural lone lovers showed 22% less oxytocin during social rituals. Not from brokenness, but rewired priorities. Your brain registers forced connection like a wolf senses steel teeth, muscles coiled, senses sharp, escape mapped before the trap snaps shut. Epictetus warned, if you wish to dine, go where the banquet is best. You found yours in empty rooms. You listened to wind confess through pines, not gossip. You traced the wisdom in tree bark, not handshakes that leave residue. Your I love you isn't a chain. It's vanishing when someone needs space to breathe. You're heartless. They spit. You know better. Your heart beats too violently for their fragile theater. The cost stains everything. Holidays pass without your phone ringing. Emergencies unfold at doors you'll never approach. But when you wake at 7 a.m. to no texts, no missed calls, no ghosts of expectation haunting your ceiling, you inhale air so pure, it scalds your lungs. They're choking on the banquet's greasy smoke. You're fasting under constellations. They chain themselves with we. You free yourself with enough. You didn't abandon people. You incinerated the performance of belonging. Every stiff smile, every hollow hug, every sorry clawing its way up your throat. Those were the bars of your cage. Now you roam where honesty is the only bridge, and few possess the courage to cross. They call it loneliness. You call it the price of sovereignty. Chapter 7. The thoughts they couldn't plant. You ever catch yourself mid-thought and feel the puppet strings? Those rehearsed opinions, borrowed convictions, tidy moral cages that keep society humming. You're scalping your own mind to rip them out. This isn't meditation. It's neurological guerrilla warfare. Society plants its flags in your skull. Work hard equal to worth, alone equal to loser, more equal to better. You're napalming the fields. You sit in deliberate silence for hours, not chasing peace, but hunting the invaders. Every belief gets dragged into the light. Whose voice is this? What jailer profits if I kneel? A 2024 Cambridge study found people who chronically question societal scripts show 31% less dopamine response to social rewards. Proof: your brain rejects the opium of belonging. Epictetus saw the trap. Men suffer not from events, but their judgment of them. You're shredding the judgments. Here's how you bleed the poison. When rage flashes, you interrogate. Is this mine? When desire burns, you dissect. Who sold me this hunger? When shame crawls up your throat, you laugh. Whose ghost is tightening the noose? You think too much. They sneer, shuffling in their mental chains. You bare teeth stained with cognitive blood. No, I'm unthinking what they force-fed you. The cost rewires your reality. Friends become strangers. Their scripts transparent as dirty glass. Music feels like propaganda drilling into your cortex. Even memories reek of borrowed narratives. But when you walk through the city and see the strings, puppets hustling for promotions, lovers reciting cultural love lines, activists chanting secondhand rage, your silence becomes a cathedral. They're deafened by the noise in their heads. You hear the void singing hymns of pure potential. They swallow thoughts like pills. You perform brain surgery with your fingernails. You haven't gone mad. You've sterilized your psyche of their fictions. Every should, every dream, every normal was a cage welded shut. Now you roam the tundra of raw perception, where truth isn't debated. It's tasted like copper on your tongue. Isn't it lonely? They whisper, clutching their prefab identities. You watch a crow gut a roadkill squirrel with sacred indifference. Isn't it lonelier to die in borrowed skin? Chapter 8: The Toxic Stoic God. The cold isn't absence. It's armor forged in the void between stars. You climb the dark triad deliberately. The higher you go, the strong your rigidity and toxicity. But if controlled, narcissism hardening into impenetrable self-containment, Machiavellianism sharpening into ruthless resource calculus, psychopathy crystallizing into operational detachment. This isn't decay. It's ascension into controlled toxicity. Odin didn't hang from Yggdrasil just for empathy. He traded agony for omniscience. Your isolation is the same ritual, severing weakness to gain the predator's singular focus. Shiva sits rigid in the solitude of Himalayan, throat blue with swallowed poison. Not compassion, but containment. Zetas don't drink poison. They teach others how not to consume poison in the first place. You mirror this. Their emotional chaos becomes tactical data. Their need for validation, leverage, their pain, a moat at your threshold. Zurich neural scans reveal your amygdala doesn't suppress threat response, it hones it. Human distress triggers not panic, but cold calculus. Like Anubis weighing hearts without blinking. Does this serve my survival? Discard if not. Scatty stalking frozen tundra isn't lonely, she's lethal precision. Your cabin is your Jotunheim. Narcissism's edge manifests not as vanity but Odin-like indifference to judgment. Power needs no applause. Machiavellian core isn't cruelty, but Tyr's sacrifice of his hand to bind Fenrir. Costs assessed, paid, forgotten. Psychopathic comm channels, Hades, ruling the underworld. Emotion is governance inefficiency. You've gone cold, they accuse. Your stare doesn't waver. Cold is the temperature of efficiency. The rigidity isn't weakness, it's structural integrity. A bridge bearing infinite weight. The unwashed cup, a vessel of solitude. No shared drink dilutes purpose. The sharpened axe, a tool of self-reliance. Dependence is decay. The watching crow, Hugin and Manin fused. Sentimentality kills. They find your molar on the table. Not a relic of pain, but a fossilized lesson. Empathy pathways didn't die, they repurposed. You feel the shift in wind pressure, not their shifting loyalties. Mirror neurons didn't break, they retrained. You reflect the crow's hunting focus, not their performative grief. Pain receptors only fire for actionable data. Broken bone, address, broken promise, static. The cabin isn't abandoned. It's a temple to operational purity. Shiva holds poison. You distill it to ash. Odin traded an eye for foresight. You traded warmth for invulnerability. Gods aren't kind. They're effective. Your toxicity isn't a flaw. It's the necessary corrosion that purifies survival. Now let's summarize the video. You stand at the edge. The path unfolds. Glacial clarity or borrowed warmth. Detachment sharpened to a weapon, or entanglement in the soft, suffocating web. We learned, true sovereignty bleeds. It carves away comfort, connection, even compassion. The mind can be rewired, empathy redirected, pain made elective, silence forged into strength. This isn't transcendence. It's survival distilled to its coldest, purest form. Are you ready for the cabin's sterile silence, where the crow is your only witness and the world's anguish is static on a dead frequency? Or does the weight of shared breaths still anchor you? Messy, aching, human. How much warmth would you trade for invulnerability? And what remains of you in the silence when the trade is done? Where does your own path split between sovereignty and surrender? Hope you've liked this one too. I really appreciate what you guys do for this channel. Thanks for watching.